Yes. My first encounter with Lubna, it's been quite a journey. I actually did not encounter Lubna as Lubna for a long time. I first became interested in, I guess, Al-Andalus, the idea of what was going on in Spain for hundreds of years until the 15th century. When I was a child, I was given, I loved reading, and my parents gave me these books by a particular writer who wrote for children like on historical periods of time. And one of these things that they gave me was all about Granada and Al-Andalus in, I think, the 11th or 12th century. And so for like a 9 or 10-year-old, I was just like, what was going on? It totally took my imagination. And from that point on, I always was looking for things that was slightly different, something that just wasn't, that was breaking the mold, something that like happened when different peoples encountered one another. And so this definitely inspired me like into my studies, and I actually first came to Al-Andalus on a music tour about 10 years ago. And that was when I first encountered Lubna, because we were only here in Cordoba for about a day and a half. Like, we arrive, we do the concert, we leave. But we drove along Calle Lubna, the road in kind of the modern part of Cordoba. And I was like, Lubna, that's an Arabic name. And sort of I filed it away in the back of my mind, thinking, that's strange. I mean, not strange because we're in Cordoba, but I'd never heard of Lubna. I'd done a little bit of Islamic history and all of this, but Lubna in particular I'd not heard of. And it stayed in the back of my mind until I saw the call for proposals for Cordoba Ciudad de Ideas. And it just suddenly came back to me, Lubna. And I started looking her up, and even there wasn't much on her, but what I found just totally fascinated me. Because where in Greece I am normally, I work in a small mobile library. The idea that Lubna was also connected with a library here kind of resonated with my life and completely fascinated me. And after that, it was just so easy to be like, this is what I want to explore more about in my project. What surprised me most about looking into more detail about these women is that, not that they had the chance for education. This is quite well known. It's fairly well explored, as much as it can be, although I feel like a lot of that information needs to be disseminated more successfully in more interesting ways. What interested me was the fact that these women came from all levels of society. Yes, there were very wealthy women, for example, like Wolada, she was supposedly a princess and all of this. But there were also women who were probably living in the harem, who were slaves. They were slaves or freed slaves, and they came from much more challenging situations. And this is what struck me, that it wasn't just the wealthy women that were using these skills or were educated. It was also women from this kind of slave class who were brought up and were taught to read, but also then used these skills in really interesting and amazingly creative ways. I try and merge my interests rarely, because it's quite a niche thing to do. Like, I love history, I'm a linguist, I studied Arabic and Farsi at university, but I'm also a musician. And I feel like they actually come together very beautifully, because for me, my interest in learning a language isn't simply to learn the language for the sake of it, it's to communicate, it's to have dialogue. And that is for me when meaning is created, when when you can communicate in a way, verbally through Arabic or Farsi or through poetry, which is what I'm using in this project, but also through music, which can be so much more powerful. So this is how I try and bring things together. My interest in music and language kind of runs together in looking at how the flow of different inspirations and traditions and patterns and styles of playing and systems of music have been developed in one place and have then sort of traveled to others. For example, like Ziryab, who is a very, very famous musician here in Al-Andalus, but also throughout the Arabic world for his development of Arabic music as we know it, started in Cordoba. And this is something that is fascinating for me. My plan is to present the music that I'm working on. Hopefully it'll be in a state ready to be presented. And I hope to perform in a concert at the end of June. I was actually very lucky in my first week here to attend a concert in Cordoba, and I met an extremely good musician who I'm hoping to collaborate with. And so it will be me and this other musician, and we will play the music and sing it as well, and hopefully people will enjoy it. For me, it's very important to take away from this experience in Cordoba that it's not just a place. I think Cordoba is very prominent in popular imagination as this place where, okay, there's the mosque, there are these archaeological ruins, there's all this history. But sometimes when I walk around, I feel like the spirit of it is empty or it's lacking. There's an absence there. And for me, my time in Cordoba is teaching me more and more that it's not just these buildings. It's not just this architecture or the history or things written in books about it. It's also the people. And for making my project meaningful, it's bringing the lives or the possible lives or using your imagination in this day and age to look back and make this connection between the Cordoba of like 1,000 years ago and the Cordoba of today.